for all the people out there with a dream that just want to be seen. Yeah, my dream's bigger than the average.
Welcome to the first episode of the Be Seen podcast. Today we've got Justin Bellow from Los Angeles in the United States, a filmmaker. He's just brought out a fantastic short called Rewind, and he's got a fantastic story to tell. It's an honor to have you on here, brother. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Me too. Me too. Tell us your journey, Justin. It's an exciting one.
Whew, man. Been doing this for about 10 years now. I went to film school right after my undergrad. Went to school up north at a place called Dominican University in San Francisco. And when I first got to college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, man. I was majoring in business my freshman year and like sales and marketing. And I remember vividly like walking to, I think it was like sales 101, and on the tack board in the hallway, there's all these flyers, for summer jobs and, different events and things that are going on, right?
Yeah.
And there was this piece of paper that said, "Come and learn the art of film." And so you could pull like, one of those little tabs for like the room and the time or whatever. And I remember going to that class, just to go and check it out. And I had no idea what to expect. And my teacher was a guy named John Duvall. And Mr. Duvall worked in the sound department on Raiders of the Lost Ark and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Wow.
And he had gone to film school. Yeah, like this guy had worked on like those are just saying, some of the big ones. Like he had worked on a lot of really big movies. He had wanted to be a director when he was younger, but he fell into sound and he started working really close with Jay Roach. And Jay Roach is, that was his classmate. He would go on to do the Austin Powers movies and all these, these crazy films. And so the first day in class, he told us to put our bags down, and he had all these cameras laid out on the table. It was like these these Canon mini DV cameras. So like these cameras were like the newest at the time, because Danny Boyle had just done 28 Days Later on these cameras, right? And so I'll never forget that, because it was like the first 5 minutes, there was no talking, no intro. It was, okay, put your bags down. You've got 45 minutes. Go out there and tell me a story. And like, that was it. Like, that was how class started. And so I remember running outside and everybody just kind of spread out. And my film was, me essentially just walking up and, talking to my friends and preventing them from getting to class on time and talking about, college life or whatever. And then when we got back to class, we all played the videos, and then he critiqued it. And he went over, plot and story and pacing. And then started to talk about how you would go and do the post-production if that was something you'd be interested in. And that was something that you could learn at the next class, but that he was trying to figure out if this was a class that he would keep doing. And I was hooked, man. Like, that was it. Like, as soon as I turned on the camera and I was running around talking to everybody, I can't even explain what it was like. It was just like that feeling of, okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do necessarily in this field. I just know I'm supposed to be in this field. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm going to be a camera operator. I don't know if I'm going to work in sound. I don't know if I'm going to be a writer or director or whatever. I just know that this feeling that I have with this camera in my hand and watching this, this story like come to life, this is all I want to do. And so the next day I walked into my guidance counselor's office, and she told me, well, you're not going to, just major in film. I mean, that's not a very realistic career choice. And I said, Liz, just sign the paperwork or just point me in the direction of somebody that can. Like, that was it. I was majoring in film. I called my parents, I think like a week later, and I told them that all I wanted to do was make movies. I was going to be a director. And I never really stopped after that, man. I started writing a lot of shorts and just filming my movies. And then I would like have premieres. So like my sophomore and junior year, I did like a 45-minute movie. Then I did like 2 or 3 like 15-minute movies. And mind you, these are all like, I look back on them because I still have all the copies, and they were really great learning experiences, because I can look back and see certain moments when I was figuring out how to tell a specific story or how to develop a type of style, right? With the things that I'm making now. And so like every movie that I'm doing now, I wouldn't be able to create things on the same kind of scale that I'm doing now had I not gone through the growing pains of these really, really you know, challenging films to look at, because I'm jumping the line a bunch, and there's the boom mic might be kind of in a shot at the top, and maybe there's a car that drives by on the sound, and there's just so many basic errors that were being made back then that you would never do today, right?
Yeah, of course.
But if you don't go through that, then you're never going to know how to make it better. And so I love the saying of like uh if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. And it's like, well, I would change a ton of things, right? Like, I don't know why people would not change anything about anything, right? Like, I know there's certain moments and certain times that I would love to have altered that shot or this story, or maybe I didn't go to the dance or the party that weekend and I stayed and I edited a little longer. You know what I mean? And uh, after I got out of college, I got into film school in LA, and it was a 13-month program. And the summer before I went to film school, I was working at a production company called Overbrook Entertainment. And at Overbrook, it was an amazing experience because it was really the first time I was reading scripts on a professional level and then having to provide coverage. And I'd never written coverage. I didn't know, um, the specificity of a log line, a synopsis, and a breakdown of characters and everything. And so it was a really great learning experience for like 3 months to read all of these great scripts that they were looking at and that they were developing, attending meetings with like executives and like real producers, and just being a fly on the wall and listening to people who are doing this at a professional level, right? Like actually talk about a creative conversation while simultaneously discussing the financial components that go along with it. And I'd never been around that many people who were on that level. And so it was such an amazing time. And like, I read as many scripts as I could. I did as much coverage as I could. And I didn't mind, getting coffee and, printing out whatever, it didn't matter to me. Like, I was excited to be there. Right. And like, listen to like these guys fine tune a pitch and hone in on, the storyboards and like what the posters were going to look like, and just all the thought and the time that goes into these creations, and how detailed and how passionate you have to be when you're talking about a story. One of the best quotes I heard in the hallway, dude, it was crazy. And it was like these two execs talking, and they were talking about how they were going to make this movie no matter what, and they were in a disagreement over something, okay, like with the distributor or whatever. But it was a very intense conversation. I was kind of caught by like the copier room with like a stack of scripts I was supposed to go, but like I couldn't walk by them. You know what I mean? Because they're like right there having this moment, and it was like I'm just kind of standing there, like fly on the wall, like overhearing what's going on. And the one exec says to the other exec, if it came down between me and you on a treadmill, I'm going to die on that treadmill. And you're not. It was amazing. So then I go to film school for like 13 months. I made 3 short films while I was there. The first was like this gritty police action drama about a crooked detective whose wife is having an affair with his partner, and then he finds out. And it's like, there's a moment at the end when they go and break up this drug ring, and a gunshot goes off and the partner dies, and you really don't know if he took him out or if it was something that went wrong with that, that drug deal. And then when he goes home, the wife is kind of looking at him as if she knows what he did. It's like she knows he knows that she knows he knows, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like, she knows he knows that she's been doing what she's doing, and they both have that mutual recognition of, okay, are we going to move forward, or what are we going to do? And of course, she puts her bag down, and it just kind of ends on these two people that are now having to deal with this new reality. Uh, then my second film was a little lighter. I did a romance about two people that get stuck in an elevator at their reunion, a class reunion, and they had dated in college, but it didn't work out. And now they're stuck together like 10 years later, and they're trying to work through a lot of these issues. And so that one I actually adapted into a feature that I'm actively out pitching right now. It's called Pause. And it's a really, really fun story. It's a coming of age. It's a little bit of a drama. And you don't know if these people are going to work it out. And it's like asking that question of, how well do you really know somebody, after you spend all this time with them, right? Like, you can be best friends with somebody or go out with somebody or marry somebody, like you don't know what's going on in their head every single moment of the day.
No.
You know what I mean? And it's like, and they're not very, happy to see each other in the beginning. Like he's happy because, he wants to win her back at this reunion. He's an author and he's written a book about their love affair in college, but she's not happy with how the book came out. So the fact that he's there, it's kind of messing up, her evening. And then when they get stuck in this elevator, we're flashing back and forth between them in college and them in present time. And they're like reanalyzing the current relationships that they're in and trying to come to terms with the fact, or the idea of, were they ever really together, or was it more of like an idea of what they could be that they loved, and you don't know if they're going to work it out when those doors open. And I love that because I love the uncertainty of it. That feels like life to me. Like I remember being in an elevator in film school and it got stuck for like 10 minutes, right? 20 minutes, whatever it was. But it's like, me and a handful of other people, and then everybody just starts talking about, whatever you're talking about. And it's like, this is the only time we would ever communicate with each other, right? On this way, because you don't know when these doors are going to open. You don't know if you're going to be saved. You don't know if the chute's just going to fall and drop out. And so now you're almost like tricking yourself into being as honest as you possibly can because you don't know what's going to happen. And it's that vulnerability that I love with characters that I always want to try and showcase in my work of, they can't hide for too long, right? Because eventually they're gonna have to come to terms with what they've done and the decisions they've made. And then my last film was a sci-fi action movie called Omission, and it was about this kid who has these supernatural abilities. Mind you, this is like 10 years ago, before superhero movies were like everywhere. This is when I was in college, like Iron Man was the first movie, right? That was the first Marvel movie to come out. And so Iron Man, and I think they had done Captain America, the first one. And so there was still that like, okay, is it gonna keep snowballing and then we're gonna get like every character, or is it like these like one-offs of like these really, really well-known ones? And so I wanted to do a superhero movie, but I didn't want to do it to where it was like blowing up these huge buildings or like this huge spectacle. I wanted it to be more of a character study on a kid trying to come to terms with the fact that he's different. He knows he's different, and he doesn't understand how powerful he is. And I'd rather explore what this kid is going through, psychologically, as opposed to, how much he can use his abilities to either advance himself or, save the world or whatever he wants to do, right? And so that was a lot of fun. I cast my brother in it, who's also an actor. He lives in New York. My brother Jordan, he's a fantastic actor, and he's probably the most talented guy I've ever worked with, just because of how serious he takes his craft. And so I really can't wait to collaborate with him again, very soon in the future on all of our projects that we're going to do. Because it's very rare that we get to work together now, because he's in New York and he does a lot of theater work and he's in a lot of plays. And I'm out here in California, but we always joke about how much fun it's going to be when we're all on set together.
That's it.
It's like, it's the best, man. And like in college, I don't mean to backtrack, but in college, like one of the movies, and I was telling you about it, before this, Jonathan, it was a movie called Rise of Handy, about these two brothers that are living at home with their parents. They're kind of losers, and their parents are essentially telling them they need to get a job, and get out of the house. And if they don't get a job, they're going to get kicked out. And so their sister works at a news station, and she gets them an interview. The problem is they only want to hire my character and they don't want to hire the younger brother. And so now they're trying to figure out how they're going to stay friends and family and everything else. And that featured like 10 of my cousins, my aunts, my mom, a couple of my uncles. It's just like, we shot it over the summer. It's like a 40-minute movie, but it's hilarious. And so we'll watch it every few years just to laugh and like reminisce about when we were filming it, and all the ridiculous jokes and moments that we had. And so now today, we always talk about how much fun we had making that movie, with everybody, because you show up on set and there's my cousin, right? There's my aunt. And it's like, it's people that you have known your entire life that are now going to play and have fun with you, right? Like we're all just going to have a good time and not worry about anything.
I've done exactly the same thing. I've produced a short film with one of my best friends. We wrote our feature film script together, and I produced this short with him, and I had to get us a bus. We had family involved. It was, like you've got to pull together whatever you can, and the scripts. This is the thing with scripts, and it'd be interesting for your take on this in a sense of, all the coverage that you offered and all the scripts that you read. What is the difference between an okay script, a bad script, a good script, and then a great script that executives are fighting for?
Right. So a bad script is one that's not formatted properly. You'll have a litany of grammatical spelling errors. You'll have scenes that don't lead anywhere. And that's probably the biggest thing. In a screenplay, everybody is fighting for something in every scene. Everybody wants something in every scene. And if it's not advancing the story forward, right, then it doesn't need to be in there. You have to get rid of it, because it can't just be people talking about nothing that's going to reveal something or move the needle in the right direction, right? And so it's like those scripts that are just telling you things or just like voicing an opinion about a subject matter without any kind of a solution to the issue that they're bringing up, right? It's just almost like you're listening to voices, just banter for 90, 100 pages. Okay, one's like, something that's cool and it's fun, and it's like, okay, they did a decent job, like, at certain elements, right? Like the beginning was really cool, but then act two kind of lulled a little bit, but then the ending was really great, right? Yeah. And so it's like, let's fix, the middle of act two and like the end of act one to make sure that we don't lose anybody in the middle of the film, right? Because like you just want to keep raising those stakes and keep people engaged so that it does become that good or that great script. You know what I mean? A good script is a script that, is obviously formatted properly. There's no grammar, spelling, or anything. And the pacing is really, really well done. The characters are developed. There's a clear arc, right? And there's a clear structure as to what's going to happen. It just doesn't jump off the page, right? It's like almost like you've seen this story before, you've seen this movie before, and it's a good movie, right? Like I got through the script and it flowed really well. The dialogue was, good at certain points. It wasn't too long on the action. It wasn't too, detailed, right? You were letting the reader do some of the work that you've, given them. But it doesn't have that, like, that special spark to where you're like, man, I've seen this before and this is cool. I don't know that I need to see it again. You know what I mean? And then with a great script, it's like it's got everything that you've wanted from your favorite movies. At least for me, like when I'm reading a great script, you've got me after like page 3, right? Like after the opening scene, I'm immediately interested in whatever this character is going through. And then by the end of the first act, if I feel like I have to keep going to like see what happens, then I'm in the story at that point. I'm not reading a script, like I'm just experiencing this journey. Yep. And that's the difference. It's like you're with these people, you set up the world, you set up the conflict and the obstacles, and now you're just on this ride. And hopefully the ride keeps taking enough twists and turns to where you don't get bored, you don't go and turn on the TV, you don't set it down. Like I know if I'm reading a great script and I'm on like page like 60 within like 40 minutes, the only reason I would get up is to use the restroom or something if I have to, right? Like because I've just been so hooked in this thing. But I would rather stay and finish the script because I have to get through it. I have to know how it ends. That's a great script because the writer has done such a good job at hooking you on the story and the characters that now you're as invested as they were when they were creating it.
Oh, absolutely. You see, I'll tell you something as well. I don't know if it's just me, but what I would find is what can separate a good script from a great script or a good film from a great film.
Yeah.
Is whether the ending has the same X factor that the opening did.
Yep.
And you'll see films, there's a few around where you'll see the openings like, yes, this looks brilliant. Love it. It's so strong, so unique. It pulls you in. But then the ending's like rushed. It's like tied up in 5 minutes. And I think you've spoiled all the other work behind it. In my opinion, like it doesn't it has to be consistent. A bit like a relationship, because it works in a similar way. There's the relationship between your characters on the page. There's your relationship with those characters, with this world. And it's whether, someone can make a real big effort in the beginning, but by the end of it, they've kind of like got bored and just want to get rid of it.
Yeah, it's like I get what you're saying. It's like because there's so many great movies that'll start off with a bang, and then like you said, the ending will be all tied up in 5 minutes, but it didn't get tied up because it's like how did everything work out if there were so many other things that were happening? Like maybe certain things shouldn't have worked out, right? And I think like the great movies, the way to separate between a good film and a good film, wraps up everything, and it's like, okay, like maybe I didn't see it coming, but then it's say again?
It's clean,
right? It's clean and it's like all clean and tidy. Like, okay, that was nice. I didn't think they were gonna do that, but overall, it was a good movie because for the first hour and 35 minutes, you had me. I was with you. Like, this is awesome. And this is how it ends. Like, okay, fine. A great movie is that ending that surprises you, not necessarily that shocks you, or it's like, why would they do that? Because then that could be like a bad movie, right? Like, why would they end it like that? That was horrible. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like
no, but that is one of the greatest endings I have ever seen, in my opinion, being lulled along this way in Seven to like, it's building. You've got this disturbing character out there who's writing all these people off in the name of sins. And then he just announces himself and you've got him. Like, what can happen next? He can't escape the car. They go into an open field. What can come? I was shocked. I did not see it coming. It's one of the very few times, like yourself, Justin, I've watched a lot of films, and to raise as well, to write a great script, you have to read, I think, many great scripts and many bad scripts, but as well as the beginning is watching your films and that passion that draws you in. And this is what drew me in to be in the game of screenwriting and in writing, is that I could create my own world. I could create my version of a great story that I've loved. I'd love if I could do it this way. Do you know?
Right.
And that caught me off guard. That scene in Seven, I was like,
whoa, I did not see it coming. Yeah.
I was gutted. Because you built up to love his wife. She's just so soft and lovely. Yeah. She's wonderful. And she's lonely and she's just this delicate flower. And he's just chopped her head off and put it in a box. Do you know what I mean? Like
nuts. It's nuts. It was like the only other movie that had me like that is like Fight Club, man. Oh. Like when you learn that he is Tyler Durden, they're the same person, that tripped me out. Because even then, when you figure out they're the same person, it's like, well, what's going to happen now? And it's like, is he going to be able to stop himself? Because he is him. Like, it's the same person. And that tripped me out. That tripped me out. And then there's a handful of films that have done that for me. And it's like, it stays with you. And I think those are the great films. The films that you think about when you leave the theater, the films that you'll think about years down the line. Like one of my favorite movies I was watching the other day, because I love the crime genre, is a film called Heat.
Love Heat.
Heat is like 3 hours long, and it never lags for a second.
Nope.
Like you are just with these people the entire time, and every single moment, it almost feels like, something's gonna happen, right? Like even if nothing happens, even if it's like De Niro talking to that lady at the diner about architecture in that magazine, you still don't know if maybe that door is going to open by the restaurant and like somebody's going to come in. Like it's like there's always like this tension that's just there with these people. You know what I mean? And it's so like fragile because everyone's world is about to just crack. And that ending, man, it's like that's the most bittersweet ending because De Niro got away with it, right? Like he's out, he's good, he's with his lady, he's driving on the freeway. All he has to do is go to the airport. Just go to the airport, get on the plane, and you're gone. But he can't. He's got to go take out Wayne Grow. And it's like, why? Why do you have to go and get off that exit? And there's a shot, man. There's a shot when they're driving in the car, and you see it on his face when they're going through this tunnel. And for a split second, he's like smiling because he got away with it. And it's okay that he doesn't have to go and take out this bad guy. But then, no, that pride kicks in and he whips it left. She's like, what are you doing? He's like, I got time. It's like, you don't have time, dude. Like, just get on the plane. That's all you had to do. And then, of course, Pacino takes him out because he said he was going to. And it's like, that's gut-wrenching. Like that movie and the way they're holding hands, like, just like I told you I was never going back. And there they are, like unified. It's like, dude, it's crazy. And so like I want to do movies like where you're not sure what's going to happen with these people. And maybe some of my characters don't change, right? Like De Niro doesn't change in that movie. He could have changed.
You know what? I was thinking about this last night because you have your positive arc, your flat arc, and your negative arc. So for those who don't know, the positive arc is you start less off, you're not well off, you're not doing well, but by the end of the story, you end up on a massive high. Right. For a negative arc, you've got it all. By the end of the story, you've lost it all. And with the flat arc is the character never changes, but the world around them does. And I always, your opinion, what's your opinion? I've always felt that Indiana Jones is a flat arc. He doesn't change, but he changes the world around him. He changes those that are persecuting others, and he goes and brings it back to the museum, but his belief never changes. He's black and white. That belongs in a museum. It's as simple as that. I'm going over there and I'm going to get whatever artifacts or whatever people or village you're disrupting and imprisoning. I'm going to go there and change it because this is what I believe. I'm not going to change. I mean, would you agree? Is he a flat arc at times? Is he a negative arc? Is he positive? I don't know. What do you think?
I think he's like a cross between, a positive and a flat arc because of all the great things that he does for all these people. Like he doesn't need to go to that cave and rescue all those child slaves, right? He could just rescue Short Round and Willie and then ride the elephant out of town. But because he's such a good person and he stands for something more, he's not going to let injustice, keep going on. And I think Indiana Jones is like, it's like if a threat to justice, a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Right? Or no, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That's the quote. Right? And so I think Indiana Jones embodies that because he's not going to let anything bad happen to the people that he cares about. He's always going to be that guy that will sacrifice himself or will risk his life, whether it's his father or his sidekick or, the love of his life. You know what I mean? And I love Indiana Jones and I can't wait for the new one to come out, man. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, those films were really the beginning of me dreaming. I find as well, sometimes in films today, some of them, I feel that unnecessary information's spoken about. Like it's the same like rhythm, like we'll talk about just nonsense, like I have to discuss my parents and my life and all these basics. Where Indiana Jones, there's none of that. You don't know who his dad is. You don't know who his mom is. You don't know what this man is just, going for this in the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's going into this cave. He's not turning back. He's going to get this like golden what would you refer
artifact?
Yeah, artifact. This golden artifact. And it's just action, action, action. I'm going in, I'm not stopping. I get caught out, I get it took off me, and I've got these tribal coming after me with sticks shooting, like poisonous
and arrows. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And it gives you enough, but what you need. I don't understand why, today we need why all the background noise. This is a story. Right. This is fiction. This is escapism. We need to, that's what we buy into. And that's what I love. That's what I love. That's my reason to watch a film is to watch, to dream, to be inspired, to root for a hero, even sometimes a villain, a character, you know. And what I mean by the villain is you take the whole of Star Wars, Anakin Skywalker finishes as the villain.
Right.
See his journey, you're rooting for him. You know, you're like, oh, even though, what does he started on? Episode 4. Does it begin on episode 4, Star Wars, right? But you come around and you see then Anakin as this little boy. Obviously, he's Darth Vader. You see him as this little boy, and you're like, please let the whole of Star Wars be wrong. Let it be wrong.
Right.
Because you love this kid and you see his potential. You almost feel like a father or a mother looking at him. Let the narrative be changed. I don't want to see him go on to that. And you just see like all these mentors that are, you know, taking him there, and it's, I don't know. So you root for the villain and the hero because he embodies both of them. What would you say is one of the most underappreciated character arcs that isn't explored as much as it maybe should be? So when you think of Christopher Vogler with the hero's journey, and you know, you've got the trickster, the villain, the hero, the mentor, all these wonderful character types, which one is the most underappreciated in your opinion?
I think the mentor, because the mentor is always looked at as this wise person who is supposed to be helping the character learn how to become a different person. And they're there as like a guide for a little bit. And then most of the time, the mentor, you know, leaves or dies or something happens to where now this character has to learn how to do it on their own. And so it's like you only get to see a piece of this person normally in the beginning of a film before something happens, right? Like when Obi-Wan sacrifices himself for the greater good in Star Wars, like I would have rather Obi-Wan, you know, continued on with Luke, right? And then maybe he could die at the end of the movie, not necessarily in the middle of it. And it's like, I love what the mentor is supposed to be and, you know, how they're normally presented. I guess I just want to see them for a little bit longer.
Yeah. I think in the Matrix with Morpheus, when he sacrifices himself, I think that film is flawless.
Oh, the first one?
Flawless,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. It is perfect. Perfection. I honestly can't see a false note in it. There's always something when you're watching a film, you'll pick something out, a piece of dialogue or a frame, the way something's been transitioned. I don't know. We look at these things. I don't think our minds aren't like the passive audience. Passive audience watch, endure, enjoy. We're
Right.
looking at it. We're analyzing constantly like that. Love that. I'll tell you, you know, how can I weave that into my craft as well?
Right.
I didn't realize this for years. As a little boy, ever since I was little, I do not watch films passively. I'm constantly analysing them, and I didn't know what I was doing. But I'd have to keep rewinding. I'd have to see if something caught my eye. I'd have to see it again and again and again and again. So repetitively, I just have to keep seeing it. I have to
Right.
understand it. That moment, if it gave me an emotion, I have to relive it again. A song in a film, I just I was obsessed, and I found it with The Matrix. You know, with the ideal of the Oracle saying to him, like, they're having this conversation, it's all nice, and you know, don't worry about the vase. Then the vase happens. It's just perfect. And she says to him, you know, do this, and she goes, you know, you're not the one. And she's saying, like, I can see why she likes you. All these hints, these little
Right.
plots. And then come the end of it, she just turns it on her head. The whole conversation on its head. You know, without Morpheus, we're all lost. What do you mean? And it shifts the complete tone. It says, you sure you want to know?
Right.
But with that, you know, he believes in you so blindly that he's giving his life to save yours. And
Right.
you have to choose whether you or him die. And then that moment happens. And then he becomes the one. It's just, you're talking about pacing. Perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
I love that movie. I remember going to theaters to see it and then seeing all of them like the next two like at midnight, Matrix 2 and the Matrix 3 like when they came out. Like that was an experience and like you had no idea what you were going to see You had no idea what to think when you walked in to go see Matrix. I was like, I think 12 or 13. We bought tickets to go see whatever else,
Yeah.
whatever was something else, whatever.
Yeah.
And we snuck into the Matrix back row. And I'll never forget it, man. At the Irvine Spectrum in Orange County. And Friday night, like the 10 o'clock show, it's packed. And we snuck in, we got like the very, very back row in like the corner. Mine was blown. Like to see the power of what filmmaking could be on that kind of a level, and like the bullet time freeze frame and the slow-mo, like it was revolutionary. Like it changed movies forever after that, because nobody had done anything like that.
No.
That rooftop scene, dodge this, like that. There's so many moments, dude. It's crazy.
There are no boundaries to dreams. There's no parameters. Your imagination has no parameters. Why are we shy of talking about it? Why, when we're children and we're 5 and 6 years old, we actually bounce off each other, being as open as we can with what we feel would be cool, because we actually deep down all agree that would be cool. Forget, it's almost as if our mind arrives at what other people would think straight away. Oh, but I can't say that because what would anyone think of me? Oh, I can't say that because I'd be labeled this. When you're a child and you're almost insulated from that kind of reaction, because everything you say is at least considered and it's supported. And especially when you're with other kids your own age, it's boundless. We're going to do this. Yeah, we are going to do that. Look at like Stand By Me. We're going to go there and get our faces in the picture. And we're going to get a hiding, and my dad will probably hide me anyway, but it's worth a hiding. Do you see?
Yeah,
When you get that and you actually want to do something, right? And what I feel sad for, and it's down to circumstance. There's people out there who are trying to become published or produced or represented in their writing, and they need a job, they need that income, they have families they need to support. They have bills. The life is not as easy as we can just have time anymore. We learn that the older we get, that time shrinks, and we have to be very particular. And then it comes down to hunger. And almost for, those that are without time and doing a job that they hate, and working on a conveyor belt at a factory, or, someone that does collect, the rubbish in the mornings. And if that makes that person happy, then that's good for them. I respect that. If you're happy, because that's the main thing. You could have $1 trillion, Justin, and still be unhappy. You could have 10 blockbuster movies and still be unhappy. So the key to it all is what makes you happy.
Right.
And I think that, for all those that are chasing it, if you're going to go out with a bang. Go out with a bang. If it's going to happen for you, be true. Be true to you. Put it out there. Put your voice out there. We've seen all the other films before. We've seen all the other books before. We've seen all the other poems before. We've seen all the other songs before. We can keep going. Be different.
Right.
Being different sets trends. That's what makes someone cool. Even if everyone else doesn't like it, maybe there's one person, 2 people, 3 people, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people go, I respect that. That's cool.
Just do you.
Copycatting. That comes by having the courage and the bravery to go out there and do it.
It's like you said, when you're a kid, 100%, dude. When you're a kid, you're crawling and you're learning how to walk, and you keep falling, and then everybody's clapping and encouraging you to get up, right? Everybody's like, oh, it's okay, you can do it, you can do it. And then eventually you learn how to walk. Yeah. And then after you learn how to walk, you learn how to run. And everybody's cheering you on and cheering you on and cheering you on. And then you hit a certain age and nobody's cheering for you anymore. In fact, they're telling you, why would you even stand up? Why would you attempt that? You should just sit down and not do that, because you're probably not going to make it. When you were a kid, for those first few years, all you're told is you can do anything. You can do everything, because you don't know nothing. You're just a little baby. You can't talk yet. You can't really think about a lot of stuff. You're just You're just learning how to function, and everybody is rooting for you. Everybody wants to see you get to the next level. And then as soon as you get to the level that everybody else is at, they don't want you to go any farther. Most people are really, really, really upset that you would even dare to think you could get to that next level because they stopped believing so long ago and they stopped trying so long ago for fear of failure and embarrassment and judgment that they don't even want to try. And the idea of trying to them is so scary and it's so frightening. They don't want to see you fail. I mean, they don't want to see you necessarily win, but they really don't want to see you fail because that would even be harder for them to swallow than you being successful. Because if you're successful, right? Let's say you do become successful and you do what you want to do, you might be able to inspire them to turn off that dumb voice in their head that keeps clicking on every day, telling them they can't do anything. I read some psychological study. It was like the average person has 60,000 thoughts in their head a day. 48,000 of those thoughts are negative every day, dude. So if you got 60,000 thoughts in your head, just over and over and over again, there's no way you're going to win that battle unless you learn how to train yourself to focus on those 12,000 positive thoughts. And then every time a negative thought pops in your head, think of 3 positive things as quickly as you can. Think of 3 positive, happy things. Even if no one would be able to understand it, if you were trying to explain it, just think happy thoughts. What's that movie Hook with Robin Williams? Think happy thoughts, Peter. Happy thoughts, Peter, because you can't fly. I love that movie. The dinner scene when everybody's pretending to eat food and he's like, "What are we doing? There's no food." He's like, "What are you talking about? This is the best meal ever." And everybody's pretending to eat food. And then it's like he finally starts to believe again in the ability to dream. And then after that, the door is open. You know what I mean? And I loved that movie when I was a kid because it was like, okay, this guy got so old and he got so run down and he was in the rat race. He forgot what it was like to dream. And I think most people, man, like the Matrix, are asleep, bro, in those pods. And they are just plugged in and they're doing the same thing every day. And they're waiting for the weekend so they can get inebriated as much as possible to forget what they did the first 5 days. And then they got to wake up and do it all over again.
You think about films today, if we're pitching them, it'd be Rambo meets Ghostbuster, and it has the feel to it of Titanic. Okay, so it's got those 3 films with that kind of feel to it. Yeah, that's it. Terminator. What's that based on?
Terminator is like RoboCop meets like
It's
aliens.
before RoboCop.
Before RoboCop, right? Yeah. So like, yeah, I don't even. Yeah, Terminator.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure. Listen, there's if we spoke to Quentin Tarantino, he could maybe say, because that man is like, he's an encyclopedia on films, but in his own genre or genres. And I started to listen very closely Italian westerns, French cop films, South Korean horror movies, and obviously martial art films. They're his area. They're his area. From me listening to him, and I'll be honest, I don't know what Terminator is mixed with what. I don't think you can, or it becomes very difficult. But today, it's so and so met so and so, and we see it. It's so familiar.
Right.
Do we've seen it all before. So what we've done is we've collaborated this scene with into this film. I don't like that. Tarantino's a master at it. Tarantino takes Uma Thurman, puts her in, I believe it's the big boss outfit of Bruce Lee, puts her on this vendetta of assassins, and starts having her fight about 100 men. That's incredible. That's worthy. That's he's a master, he's a grandmaster. See what I mean? But I'm just saying, I'm challenging that original films. I was thinking about it, because like with Jaws, I'm sure you had maybe shark films prior to that. I'm almost certain there were films before Jaws, but not like Jaws.
Not on that scale, yeah.
That own the sea. Jaws still owns the sea. That film's got to be It's got to be coming up to 60 years old. 50 to 60 years old.
Yeah, it came out in 77.
77. So what?
Yeah.
So you're talking what, 55, 56 years old.
Yeah.
It's still
Yeah, man.
flawless. It's
Oh, it's
still
great.
flawless. You can watch films 20 years ago and know the effects are slightly out. You know, like, okay, yeah, I thought that was cool back in the day. I can see it's dated. I can see the difference. Can't see it in Jaws.
Well, that shark wouldn't work. That's why they had to do all that, you know. The whole thing, you were supposed to see the shark the whole time, right? And it kept breaking down on set. So it's like, well, let's just shoot it from a POV underwater, put that killer soundtrack in, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, and it's like it just creates a whole different type of tension.
Amazing.
So,
I think that as well. Tarantino says when he first writes a script, he wants to think of what music he's going to open the scene with.
mhm.
That's brilliant, that is. And I like his choices of music, but I also believe that a song with a solid score, you know, what's the soundtrack to Star Wars? What's the music? Which artist did it? It's not, it's a score. Same as Jaws, it's a score. And I miss that instrumental, that orchestra that creates this emotion. You think about Halloween, you know, John Carpenter created it on bongos, I believe. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
synthesizer. Huh?
That's
Yeah.
what gets me. That's what I think's missing in films. We've got the next soundtrack, the next this. And, you know, there's some of them that are incredible. I watched the Black Panther recently and I forget the gentleman's name that created the soundtrack to it. Wow. I was inspired. I felt it. I had goosebumps. You know, like I respect that. I respect the Ghostbusters. I respect their soundtrack. But then other times it's just we're just going to fit this song in it, and I'm like, yeah, I get it, but is this a film or is it a music video? What we're playing?
Yeah, sometimes it's like sometimes it can work with a song that everybody knows,
Yeah,
and then sometimes it'll just kill that whole moment, you know?
yeah.
And I always think of one of my favorite quotes when I was in film school, Stanley Kubrick. He said that
Class.
a film should feel like a progression of feelings and emotions, almost like a song, right? Like that's what a movie should be. Because a song, you have feelings, you have emotions, and you're thinking about, you know, why this part makes me excited, but then over the chorus, I get really sad. But then on the second verse, you know, I'm excited again. And it's like, that's how a movie should feel. It shouldn't be, hey, here's a music video part. Now here feels sad. Now hear this. It's like, no, like we should just be experiencing this world with the characters like you would in a song. And so I always think of that whenever I start doing a movie. I'll write down like my track list, not necessarily like how every scene is going to have it, but I'll write down all the songs that I'm thinking of that maybe could live in here somewhere. Maybe you hear like a piece of it on the radio when the guy pulls up to an apartment, or maybe this, you know, you walk into a restaurant and you see a commercial with a jingle that has a soundtrack for something else. And it's like there's certain directors and there's certain filmmakers that will weave out those songs in on top of the score. And it's like, well, now you've got the score of the film, right? And you have the soundtrack, and they're working simultaneously together. And they're almost like, you know, this like pairing. And I love that, man, because it's so rare when it like how you said, it's like if it's just images with a song that everybody knows, well, this is a music video. But if you can somehow weave that with your score and then know when to cut out the sound, man, because like when you have no sound, that's as powerful as when you do have sound. If you know when to do that, right? Like you can't just go, not like in a war scene when a bomb goes off. Yeah, it's going to be silent for a second. Then you'll hear that, ding, and then the sound's going to come back. But what about those moments when it's like, you know, something bad's about to happen, and right before that bad thing happens, it's dead silence. And then bang, whatever it is, right? Whether it's a gunshot or someone saying, I love you or whatever, you know?
At a time where the audience expect it least. At a time where they're comfortable, you almost dangle a piece of action that they're like, that was the battle. Battle's over. You know, we've calmed down now. There's bonding going on. Bang, it happens. Do you know? Because that's I think it is the art of being able to create a high pressure, high emotion situation out of nowhere, yeah, without you seeing it coming. But it was planted so subtly at the beginning, because when you think about like my favorite film, there's so many films, but okay, one of my favorite films, Christopher Nolan, The Dark Knight Rises, yeah, and
Okay.
and he has that speech, his fantasy, Alfred's fantasy, like I, I, I almost hoped and prayed for 7 years that you wouldn't come back, and he weren't expecting to hear that. And he talks about how he goes for his drink on the he has a Fernie Blanca,
Right.
in Italy or wherever he goes to, and he goes, I had a fantasy that I'd look across the tables and I'd see you there with a couple of kids, and you wouldn't say anything to me, nor me to you, but we'd both know that you'd made it, that you were happy. And it comes to the end of the story, and it's been passed over. You learn that Blake is really Robin, and he's going to go on the journey. And this tying up, Alfred's apologizing to Bruce's parents, and things start to unravel. The backlight was fixed. It's back. The flying machine, whatever it was, that's been repaired.
Batmobile.
Yeah, yeah. And he looks across the table, and you're hoping, and he's there. He's there. And he
Yeah.
just looks at him. And honestly, that feeling after him
Yeah.
sacrificing himself for an entire city of
Oh.
people that no one respects him, or very few, nobody really knows who he is. Even the law's after him, and he's trying to protect everyone from these villains.
Mhm.
And he sacrifices everything, and he doesn't have to.
Right.
He's a billionaire. He doesn't have to do none of this,
Right.
and he does. That film, that does it for me.
You can stay down when something's not happening for you, and you can just beat yourself up as to why it didn't work out or what you could have done different. Or you can just wake up and get after it. Right? Like my dad used to say, one of my dad's, like, my favorite quote from my dad, the best father in the world, man. Man worked 70 hours a week, but was traveled 5 days a week, 4 or 5 days a week, every week when I was a kid, but was home every Saturday morning making breakfast, took me and my siblings to all of our basketball, football, plays, whatever the event was. It was family for those full 2 days. And it never felt like he wasn't around. Even though I didn't see him like Monday through Thursday, and he would get in late on a Friday, Saturday morning, you'd smell those eggs and the bacon and the grits cooking, right? And I knew dad was home. I think my favorite quote that he ever said to me was, "Nobody cares, work harder." Like, the world is a cruel and unfair place. Nobody cares, dude. Because whatever you're complaining about or you're whining about, there's a guy out there that's got like 10 times those problems. So, like, nobody cares, work harder, and you'll be all right. The only way you're not going to be all right is if you start to believe that little voice in your head that's telling you you're not good enough for whatever it is you're trying to achieve, right? And you got to shut him off quick, dude. Otherwise, it's over before it even started for you.
I totally agree. It's like what Mike Tyson said when he'd get into the ring, with his with whichever fighter was opposite him, and when they're squared off,
Yeah.
they looked away for a fraction of a second. They've already lost. You've already lost. He knew he had them, and they're the instincts of killers. And you have to have those same instincts for what you're going after. You got to kill, but not kill anyone. That's something
No.
I hate. People treading on people, using them, abusing them to get themselves ahead. It's you versus you. You're good
That's
enough,
it.
but you can always be good enough if you're committed. And I truly believe that. I believe if you're obsessed, I believe that if you commit, you're strategic, and you have the heart for it, I really believe you can do anything. Sadly, not enough people hold on. And it's always that last second you let go. You would have won it. You know what I mean? There's that famous picture between Michael Phelps in the Olympics, I believe, and
Guy
he's
looking over at him. The guy looking over at him. Winners don't focus on anybody else, dude.
winners do not focus on anyone else. Well said. That's the truth. So
I
it's
love
a,
that picture. Because it's the guy looking over knowing he's going to lose. And what's Phelps doing? Phelps is focused on the gold, dude. I'm not worried about anybody else. Like, I'm never worried about anybody else. Like, I'm not worried about what somebody's writing about in their movie or what they're, what they're doing in their film or whatever. Like, I don't look at somebody and go, man, I got to do it just like that. Like, no, I'm trying to do me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to do my style. I'm not worried about however it is you're doing you. And like, don't be mad at me because I'm doing me better than you're doing you. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't be upset because I dared to believe that I could be great. I dared to think that I could do whatever I wanted to do. And now you're upset because I said I was going to do it and I did it. And now I'm doing it. Like, come on. Come on, man. And that's all it's about. And like, you got to surround yourself with people. It's like, you don't need a bunch of people, bro. You need like 2, 3 people, right? 2 or 3 people that are as focused as you are, in line with what you're going after. Y'all can take over the world together, dude. Oh man, I'm happy we met, bro. For real, dude. There's not too many like-minded people like this in the world, man. That I've come into contact with personally myself. Like, I came up with a lot of people. I had a lot of really great friends and acquaintances that swore they wanted to do it, that really wanted to make movies, and they really wanted to be on those sets and go all over the world. It's like, do you? Or would you rather go to that bachelor party? Would you rather be at that birthday event? Oh, you got tickets to the finals? No way, really? But you can't go to the shoot? I see. For the photo op, for the selfie. Got you. Had time for the selfie, not time for this post-production session. I got you. It's cool. I'll see you. See you around. You know?
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally. You gotta want it. You gotta grab hold of it and never let go. It's that simple. My brother, thank you ever so much for coming on.
Thank you, man.
It's an honor to kick it off with a gentleman who is so committed to achieving as a filmmaker, as a writer, as a human being. You have the spirit of a champion, and all I'd say is to those watching, keep an eye out for Justin Bellow because he's not messing about, and I think he's going to go on and do great things. My brother, thank you for your time. I truly appreciate
you, man. Thank you.
it. Be seen.
Later, man.